Hansel and Gretel. At the edge of a deep, dark forest there lived a poor woodcutter and his wife, a mean, spiteful woman, and their two children, Hansel and Gretel. The family was very poor, and there was often very little food on the table. One dreadful day, there was no food at all, and everyone went to bed hungry. Hansel could not sleep, and so it was that he heard his mother talking to his father. "Husband," she said in her thin, spiteful voice, "there are too many mouths to feed. You must leave the children in the forest tomorrow." "Wife, I cannot abandon our children. There are wolves in the forest," said the poor woodcutter. But his wife gave him no peace until he had agreed to her wicked plan. Hansel felt his heart grow icy cold, but he was a clever boy, and so he slipped out of the house and filled his pockets with the shiny white stones that lay scattered around the house. The next morning, they all rose early, and Hansel and Gretel followed their father deep into the forest. He lit them a fire and told them he was going to gather wood and would be back to collect them. He left them, tears falling down his face. The day passed slowly. Hansel kept their fire going, but when night fell, it grew very cold, and they could hear all kinds of rustling under the shadowy trees. Gretel could not understand why their father had not come back to collect them. So Hansel had to tell her that their mother had told the woodcutter to leave them there deliberately. "But don't worry, Gretel," he said with a smile. "I will lead us back home." And there, clear in the moonlight, he showed her the line of shiny white stones that he had dropped from his pocket one by one that morning as their father had led them into the forest. They were soon home, where their father greeted them with great joy, but their mother was not pleased. Some time passed. They managed to survive with very little to eat, but another day came when Hansel heard his mother demanding that the woodcutter leave them in the forest again. This time, when Hansel went to collect some more shiny pebbles, he found his mother had locked the door and he couldn't get out. In the morning, their father gave them each a small piece of bread, and then led them even deeper into the forest than before. All day long, Hansel comforted Gretel and told her that this time he had left a trail of breadcrumbs to lead them safely back home. But when moon rose and the children set off, there was not a breadcrumb to be seen. The birds had eaten every last one. There was nothing to do but go to sleep under one of the great big trees and wait to see what they might do in the morning. All next day they walked and walked, but they saw nothing but more and more great trees. And the next day was the same. By this time they were not only cold and very hungry, but deeply frightened. It looked as if they would never ever be able to find a way out of the forest. But then, just as it was getting dark, they came to a little clearing, and there stood the most extraordinary house. The walls were made of gingerbread, the windows of fine spun sugar, and the tiles on the roof were brightly striped sweets. Hansel and Gretel could not believe their good luck, and they were soon breaking off little bits of the amazing house to eat. But then a little voice came from inside. "Nibble, nibble, little mouse, who is that eating my sweet house?" Out of the front door came a very old woman. She smiled very sweetly at the children and said, "Dear children, you don't need to eat my house. Come inside and I will give you plenty to eat, and you shall sleep in warm, cozy beds tonight." Hansel and Gretel needed no second asking. They were soon tucked up, warm and full of hot milk and ginger biscuits and apples. They both fell asleep very quickly, but little did they know they were in the worse danger than ever before. The old woman was a wicked witch, and she had decided to make Gretel work in the kitchen. And worst of all, she planned to fatten Hansel up so she might eat him. The very next morning, she locked poor Hansel in a big cage and gave Gretel a broom and told her to clean the gingerbread house from top to toe. In the evening, the witch fed Hansel a huge plate of chicken, but she only gave poor Gretel a dry hank of bread. But once she was asleep, Hansel shared his meal with Gretel, and so they lived for many days. The witch could not see very well, so every morning the witch would make Hansel put his finger through the cage so she could tell how fat he was getting. But clever Hansel poked a chicken bone through the bars to the thought he was still too skinny to eat. After many days, she grew fed up and decided to eat him anyway. And so she asked Gretel to help her prepare the big oven. The witch made some bread to go with her supper, and when the oven was really hot, she put it in to cook. The kitchen was soon filled with the lovely smell of baking bread, and the witch asked Gretel to lift the bread out to cool. But Gretel was clever too. She pretended she couldn't reach the tray, and when the witch bent down inside the oven, Gretel gave her a great shock and closed the door with a clang. And that was the end of the witch. Gretel released Hansel, and together they set off once more to try to find their way home. After all their adventures, fortune finally smiled on them, and they soon found the path home. Their way were reunited with their father, who was simply overjoyed to see them again. And that, you might ask, of their mean mother. Well, the poor woodcutter had not had a happy moment since he left the children in the forest. He had become so miserable that she decided there was no living with him. The day before Hansel and Gretel returned, she had up sticks and left. So that served her right, didn't it? The end. Do you like the story of Hansel and Gretel? If you like the story, please subscribe on my channel and see you there next time. Thanks for watching.